Okay, ready? Okay. Welcome everybody. I'm Jody Miller. I'm the center manager for Night Off the Streets, and I definitely want to thank everybody for coming out and volunteering your time, whether you did it last year, whether this is your first time. We definitely appreciate what you guys do. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to provide the warming center. So it wouldn't even be a thing. It wouldn't even be possible without all of you. So thank you very much. Another thing I do want to mention is that it does take we have over 900 shifts to fill in a season, and so many hands make light work. So if you know someone that maybe you want to talk to and ask them if they'd be interested in volunteering, we are starting this volunteer recruitment campaign called Each One Ask One, and we have found that that personal ask goes a lot further than social media and media outlets. While that does work, sometimes that personal ask is a little bit more effective. So if you can think of that one person maybe you want to send a text to or give a call to and talk to them about your experience with NOTS, or if it's your first time, why you'd like to volunteer with NOTS, that would be great, and it would help us get those shifts filled. So we are going to get started. We're just going to go through the training manual today. We'll stop and discuss details on that. And if you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll get those answered. I will have to repeat the question. So if I do that, that's the reason why. It's just for the recording so that people can hear that question. So we'll start with how to volunteer. You're going to complete an application, and once your application is received, you'll receive information on how to complete the background check. And basically that's just getting your fingerprints done at the Carson City Sheriff's Office here in town. Once the background check is complete, you'll need to watch the training video. If you've already done it here, you're fine. And then we will get you to shadow a couple of shifts so you can see what a shift in the center looks like. The shift structure is as follows. It is open 7 days a week, including holidays and extreme weather. It opens at 9 and closes at 6:30 a.m. So the shifts are structured this way. They are 8 p.m. to 11:45 p.m., 11:45 p.m. to 3:45 a.m., and then 3:45 a.m. to 7 o'clock a.m. And we'll go over the specifics of each shift. The center locations, you can see that this is the schedule for the upcoming season, and it does say that guests are bused into locations. They are, some of them do come to the location and line up that way. If they are bused into the location, into the church for the night, there is a pickup location. And that pickup location this year is going to be Vitality, which is right across the street from Fish. And that address is 119 East Long Street. And so they'll be picked up there about 8:45 to get to the location for the night at 9. November will be at St. Teresa's. December will be First Presbyterian. January will be First United Methodist. February is St. Paul's Lutheran. And March will be St. Peter's. Last year, the need was a little bit greater than St. Peter's could handle, so we did go back to a previous church. And if that does happen again this year, we will let you guys know. So signing up for a shift, you can send an email to notscarson@outlook.com. However, we would prefer you to use a different email, and it's not in here, so if you want to take a minute to write that down. It is also the email that you have been getting emails from already. It's the NOTS trainer, NOTSTRAINER 23@gmail.com. NOTS trainer, NOTSTRAINER 23@gmail.com. You can also call, and you can see I whited it out because that number is no longer, but if you look on, yes.
It's at the top of each schedule.
Perfect. So Jay said that email is at the top of the schedule, so you will see that. If you look on page 3, you'll see the phone number, 775-781-9767. That is the schedule phone number. So you can always call that if you'd like to sign up for a shift as well. Once you sign up for a shift, you'll receive a reminder phone call 24 to 48 hours in advance. If you need to take yourself off of a shift, please give the scheduler as much time to find a replacement for you as possible. If you can find a replacement for yourself, great. Please let the scheduler know. And also, if you feel that you are sick, if you've been exposed to COVID, if there's, you're feeling under the weather, go ahead and just stay home and just let us know as soon as you can so that we can get that spot filled. If your relief doesn't show, let's say you're on a shift and the next person hasn't came in, please call the scheduler first. If they don't pick up, you can call myself. The phone number is there. It's 775-600-2215. And then next call Deacon Craig if I don't pick up. And that phone number is there as well. And just so that you guys know, the person doing the scheduling may change, but the NOTS phone number won't. But Jay seems pretty committed, so thank you, Jay. The next thing, this is an important one. This is the volunteer binder, and this is the way that we communicate with each other. And so anytime that you come on your shift, you need to make sure to check that volunteer binder for any updates, anything that changes, anything that happened on a previous shift, so that way we're all on the same page about things. So you'll find in the binder the band guest list, the schedule, volunteer contact information, volunteer sign-in sheet, the church location and specific information, shift notes, and this is a really important piece, okay? So if you've had an interesting event happen on shift or you've encountered a situation that you think might come up again, please write it in the notebook so that we can follow up, just so that the next person can be aware as well. Please also write down any other information you'd like to pass along to the next shift, even if everything was nice and quiet. Make sure when making an entry into the shift log that you note the date and time of the incident and also print your name. If you'd like to include your phone number on that so that we can give you a call back or get any more details from you, you can also do that. Resources and referrals. And so referrals are a part of our grants that we get. We do have to maintain a certain number of grants and report that data back to the city. So what you'll find in this tab is a list of available resources in the area and how to refer guests to those community resources. That process is going to change a little bit, but I will definitely keep you guys updated on that before the season starts. We do need to make sure that we keep that stuff documented. So if somebody comes up to you and says, I need some warm clothing, where can I go? You can look in that tab and see, okay, this is where you can go. We need to make sure that we document that because that simple thing is a referral, right? If somebody's finally wanting some housing, you can look in there and see what the housing options are and you can refer them to the housing resources. Again, that's another referral, right? So anytime we refer them to a service in town, that counts as a referral and we need to make sure we document that. There was a form last year, and I think we're going to try and simplify it a little bit this year. A release of information. So when the guests come in, we want to ask them if they can sign this release of information. They don't have to in order to stay at the warming center. However, if we're going to be giving them a referral, it's really handy to have so that we can make that follow-up. We need that release of information for the next agency to give us the information. So if you're making a referral, if you can also have them sign that and just let them know this is so that we can follow up, that would be great. And then we keep that information. Again, it's not a requirement for them to stay in the center. So these are the things that you might do on a shift. Check in guests as they enter. Write down their name and date of birth. Do not give guests the book to write their names. Make sure we do that. Provide them with a new sleeping bag if they do not already have one. Each guest will be assigned a bin and a sleeping bag that must remain in the center. As they come in, please let them know about the center rules. You might read a book, talk with guests, and answer questions. You may help guests fill out forms, talk with your shift partner, observe happenings in the center. Kindly remind guests of the rules, clean and sanitize, stock supplies. This one, walk the premises inside and out. This is a must. We must be doing this multiple times throughout our shift to make sure that everyone's following the rules, that safety is being enforced, and all of that. You may interact with law enforcement as they do drop-offs. Call law enforcement, call for medical assistance, help maintain order and respect for others, watch people sleep, and you may listen to a lot of snoring. The center protocol. Okay, so to ensure the health and safety of both our guests and volunteers, the following, please note the following. Guests should arrive on the bus. This is not a requirement. This is not guests on the bus get first come, first serve. Everyone that's lined up, that's how they'll come in. So it doesn't need to be if they come in on the bus, they get to come in first. I think that's how it was previously during COVID, but this is how we can do it this year. So guests are allowed to enter at any time after 9. So if they come in at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're allowed to come in. Guests are not allowed to leave the immediate premises unless they are working. If a guest states they are leaving for work, please write down the guest's name, time and departure, and place of employment in the binder. Also make sure that you note that on the sign-in sheet too, please. So again, if they're leaving for work and let's say they are just going to work a couple of hours and they're coming back, let's make sure we note where they're going to work, what time they left, and then if they come back, what time they came back. Now, if they leave and they're just mad or they're leaving for the night, you can remind them that if they leave, they're not able to come back. So if a guest leaves for the night, they're not allowed to enter back for that night.
A word of note there.
Yes.
When guests are signing in, that's the best time to find out this information. Don't wait until you've woke them up. The challenge is at that point, other people are sleeping and you don't want to interrupt those guests to find out what information you need to write down, like place of employment or, any other pertinent information. I have had that happen a couple of times where people waited until, let's say they wake them up at 4 o'clock. Everybody's trying to sleep a long time.
So are you referring to when they have like a wake-up call? Okay, so Jay is talking about if somebody is working, they will ask for a wake-up call. And so if we can get that information when they ask for that wake-up call, what's the place of employment? Are you expected to come back? That type of thing. Also with the wake-up calls, there is a cone that you can put next to that person. Please make sure that we note it in the binder on the shift log of this person needs a wake-up call at this time. If there are multiple people, let's make sure that we identify that. If we can put, I think we're going to do numbers where we just number the cones and then number that correlating number in the shift log. But yes, that's a good point. For the opening shift, this is for the 8 to 11:45. You're going to sign in using the binder. So there is a volunteer sign-in sheet that we need to make sure we write our name and time of our shift. Make sure you sign out as well. And then log any events that happen throughout the shift. You're going to set the coffee and tea station, brew decaf coffee, put out water pitchers, sugar, creamer, cups, stirs, and decaf tea. Set the tarps out. The doors will open at 9. Now this says ensuring guests who arrive on the bus are first to enter, and that's no longer, so you can just cross that out. Write the guest's name, date of birth on the intake sheet. The intake process is going to change a little bit this year, and we will also give you that information once we get that confirmed. We do need to start collecting a little bit more data this year for grants and things like that. So when we get that process completed, we'll let you guys know. Volunteers will provide the guests with a sleeping bag and a box if they do not already have one at the center. So if they don't already have one and they come in, it's their first time there, we're going to label the tote with the guest's first and last name on both ends of that tote. Guests must leave their sleeping bags in their designated tote at the center. Nothing else is to go in that tote except the NOTS issued sleeping bag. Lights out at 10 p.m. Guests do not have to be asleep at this time, but they do have to allow other guests to sleep. So they can be up at that table, but they do, if they're going to be in the sleeping area, they do need to be quiet. And then you are also, you can review the following guidelines with guests at the time of opening. So guests are not to move the pre-placed tarps. You can use your best judgment for exceptions to this rule, such as caregivers or families, or if we have someone who we know is a big time snorer or big time, has the every day is waking everybody up. We do have the earplugs, of course, but if we can move them to a different side of the room, we can do that. No drugs or alcohol are allowed on property, period. So if somebody comes in and they have this open bottle or unopened bottle of vodka, they have to get rid of it or they have to leave. They cannot bring any alcohol or drugs onto the property ever. And so that's why it's really important to make sure that we're walking the premises and that we're walking the aisles of the sleeping room so that we have eyes on, see what's going on. Again, so guests can come in under the influence. That's one thing I love about our center. They can come in under the influence. However, again, no drugs and alcohol.
Do we ask them when we enter their name, when they're signing in, do we ask them if they have any alcohol or drugs on them?
We haven't in the past, but I think that might be something that we could just to... Oh, I'm sorry. He said, is that something that we ask when they come in? Do we ask, do you have any drugs and alcohol on you? We do have a sign. We do have a sign.
You can ask them, you're either giving this to me, and I'm giving it because you're gonna pour it down the sink, even if it's an unopened bottle. And if they don't wanna give it to you, say, it's yours, but you have to leave.
So Deacon said that there is a sign in the front that says no drugs and alcohol are allowed on the premises. If they try to hand you their bottle, you're not to hold the bottle and save it for them in the morning. You're to pour it out, or you can hand it back to them and say that they are not allowed in for the night. Yes.
Previous years, on checking, we would use a temperature monitor, and if they had a high fever,
Mm-hmm.
we would ask that they not stay in.
So he said there in previous years we used a temperature, and if the temperature was high, they weren't allowed in, and I believe that was during COVID, and we are no longer doing that. Yes, good question. Again, if the guest leaves for the night, they are not allowed to re-enter, and the only exception for this is if the guest is working. Again, get their name, place of employment, and the time the guest left, and estimated time of return. And again, do this in the beginning. Again, it'll be the best place to do that. Anyone not following these guidelines will be asked to leave. We want to make sure that everybody is following the rules and on the same page, right? So we all know the rules here, and what happens is if this shift lets somebody do something that's against the rules in this handbook or the training manual, the next shift that comes on will have an issue, right? And so sometimes I know myself when I did a couple of shifts last year, I would say, hey, you're not allowed to do this, right? And well, this person let me do it the previous shift, or last week we were able to do it. So it's really important, you guys, that we all stay on the same page of following the rules and making sure that everybody else is following the rules. There are those times when there are those exceptions, like if you need to move a tarp, things like that, and we just want to make sure that we note that in the shift log, okay?
Question?
Yes,
Just an observation.
sure.
Sometimes there are guests who come and sign in, and then they go out and they sleep in the parking lot in their car.
Mhm.
And they want to get there so they're registered as a homeless person, and they want to use bathroom facilities, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. So he said there are people that come in, they'll sign in on the sign-in sheet, but then they'll go back out and sleep in their car, and that's absolutely allowed. And they can come in to use the restroom as well. Definitely. Thank you for saying that. Yes.
What about weapons?
We'll get to that. Yes, definitely. She was asking about weapons, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
I was going to observe that they don't always tell the truth about someone else letting them do this.
That's the truth.
Oftentimes pull the trump card and say, well, Deacon said I could do this.
Mm-hmm. And that's true. So what Dawn is saying is that sometimes they will say that somebody let them do that, and that's not the truth. Or they'll say, Deacon lets me do it, right? So we just need to use our best judgment when that happens. So for the middle shift, again, we want to make sure that we sign in on the volunteer sign-in sheet. Log any events that might happen throughout your shift, making sure to write your name and the time of the event. And then if any new guests arrive, make sure that you get their information put down. Yes, Sherry?
But also when you come on shift, check the shift log to see what happened previously.
Absolutely. So she's saying when we come on shift, to make sure that you check the shift log. That is one of the most important things when you come on shift, is to check that shift log and see what happened in the previous shifts. And if we're making notes like we're supposed to, then it'll run a lot smoother.
Because if there's a particular person previously who was troublesome, get the name of the troublesome person, and you see that same person come in, you take a little closer look and make sure that they're going to behave.
Right. So he's saying if there's somebody that's troublesome, to make sure that we note that, so that way when that person comes in, we have eyes on him and we can kind of watch the situation. And absolutely, that's what that shift log is for, definitely. At the closing shift, 3:45 to 7, you're going to sign in again. You're going to check that shift log, and you're going to write any guest names and date of births if there's any new arrivals. Guests are going to be woken up at 6 a.m. and they must vacate the property by 6:30. So guests must leave by 6:30, and sometimes we do have those people that want to stay and don't want to leave. So in that case, we're going to call dispatch and get some assistance. Ensure that guests put their sleeping bags in the proper storage area as per the location. Guests must leave NOTS issued sleeping bags at the center in their designated totes. They will not be reissued another one unless there are serious hygiene concerns or the bag becomes unusable. Or if they leave, they haven't been there for a while, we will take the sleeping bag and clean it and sanitize it and, have it used for the next person. But they can get another one if it's been a while since they've been there. I don't think we're using the misters anymore. Is that correct, Deacon? We're not using the misters. No. Okay, so we don't need to worry about that. So we're just going to clean the coffee and tea station. We're going to clean all surfaces, check the bathrooms, check the premises and the property before we leave.
Check or clean?
If you see that it's a mess, I would, try and wipe up a little bit. But yes, we definitely want to check and make sure if there's any messes left behind that we get that cleaned up. So again, as Molly touched on, please know that 99.99999% of your time at the center will include watching guests sleep. But for that 0.0001% chance, if something doesn't feel right, just pay attention. Always communicate with your partner about a potential situation. Develop a plan with your partner for calling 911 if you have to make a call. If you feel the situation may be hazardous to yourself or others, call 911. The Sheriff's Office is there to help, and deputies frequently patrol the center area. Our Sheriff's Office recognizes the importance of the center and the impacts the center has on the Carson City community. Do not be afraid to call 911. If it is escalating and people are in each other's faces and there's a fight is about to happen, call 911. Please do not try to break up a fight. Please do not get involved. Just call 911. Did you want to say something? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, when you're done.
Okay. Let's see. You will not get in trouble or reprimanded for calling 911. Even if the situation de-escalates before law enforcement arrives, we would encourage you to just call 911. These are the reports that must be made to 911. A lost or found child. Please keep in mind that minors do enter our center. If a minor child, especially an unaccompanied minor, enters, step away and contact Deacon Craig. Do not call dispatch when the minor is present. Do not prevent them from entering the center. Get as much information as you can without being too pushy. The last thing we want to do is have the minor run away from the center. Violence of any kind, child or elder abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, death, medical emergencies, psychiatric emergencies, any situation that is likely to put a volunteer and or a guest in harm's way, persistently disruptive behavior. And what I'm going to say is that people are there to sleep, right? They're there to sleep. If they are being disruptive, if you've asked them, one or two times to be quiet and they're not, then it's time for them to go. We want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to get a good night's sleep, right? And so if the earplugs aren't working and they're continually being disruptive and disrespectful, after a few times of talking to them, I would ask them to leave. If they don't leave, then that's when you can call 911. Guests exhibiting suicidal and or homicidal ideation, or if the guest requests ambulance or medical attention. If a guest is requesting that attention, please call 911 or the paramedics. I'm on the next section. Do you want to come in? Okay. Okay. Let's see. So these are some miscellaneous rules. Search. NOTS management has the right to and will on occasion search our guests and their personal belongings. NOTS management and volunteers have the right to search guest bin left at the center. Only NOTS issued sleeping bags are allowed in the guest bin. No other personal items are allowed to be stored. Private property is the responsibility of its owner and cannot be left at the center. Any property left after the center closes needs to be gathered up and will be handled by NOTS management. If possible, notify the center manager. Sometimes you will get guests who say, this was stolen, or their backpack was stolen, or their phone was stolen. The best thing for them to do is contact law enforcement on their own. So direct them to do that. Weapons and firearms. So weapons, knives, guns, bats, clubs, anything that looks like a weapon are never permitted on premises. This includes volunteers. If a guest is carrying a knife, ask them to leave the knife with you. Write their name on it with the masking tape, and let them know they can pick it up when they leave in the morning. And please make sure to note this in the shift log. Note whose it is and where you put it. Yes. If they fail to comply, remind them that they will not be permitted to enter the center. If they become agitated, please call 911. If a guest is carrying a firearm, do not approach the guest, just contact 911. If a firearm is found on property, call 911 immediately. Unless you have had proper firearm training, please do not handle the firearm. Do not leave the firearm unattended and do not allow guests to handle this firearm. Some other rules to go over is men and women must sleep separately. This includes married couples. However, if we have a family, we will have the mom and kids sleep together, of course. We'll make special arrangements for that and make sure that we keep them together. If needed, there are feminine hygiene products and a first aid kit in the center bin. Please share these with guests as needed. Narcan is also found in that first aid kit in that center bin. The designated smoking area is typically right outside the center doors. Please make sure that guests are not leaving property while outside. We want to make sure that they're not leaving that smoking area, right? We want to be able to have eyes on them. So I would remind them of that when they go out to smoke. Please don't leave that area. Because sometimes they'll go around the corner and they'll still think, oh, I'm still on property, I can go back in. And that's not the case. We want to make sure that they are in that area where we have eyes on them. And again, if you do see the guests start to leave the property, please gently remind them of our policy on leaving the center after they've signed in. Please remind guests to keep the doors closed so that no smoke and or cold air comes into the building. We do accept guests with pets as long as the pets can be crated. I know we had a lady last year who had a dog that wasn't crated, so just use your best judgment. If the dog is, being quiet and laying next to her and not being disruptive, then again, use your best judgment. Like Molly said, we do trust you guys and we trust in your judgment. So if you think that's okay, then go ahead and do that. And maybe make a note of it. I would make a note of it so that the next shift knows. There will be a designated table where guests can eat and drink. No food or drink is allowed bedside, including water. Guests are not allowed to bring in food. We as volunteers are not allowed to bring food to share with the guests. So they can bring in food as long as they keep it in their backpack, right? We don't want to so what I saw last year when I was doing my walkthroughs is that they would have their backpacks open and the food is like right there and they're eating out of it, right? So that's why we do those walkthroughs. It's very important that we make sure that everybody's following those rules. What happens is stains happen on the carpet and then we have to get those carpets clean. And we want to make sure that we are leaving the church in the same condition we found it, right? So we can remind them, hey, we want the church to open their doors to us next season and continue to open their doors to us, so let's make sure that we're following the rules. And if you want to eat, you can take it to the table. This includes water cups, so please make sure that you're doing your walkthroughs, and if you see water cups, that you remind them to take their water cup to the table. We are at the end. So is there any questions? Yes, Sherry?
A couple comments.
Sure.
All of our locations, yes, are not allowed in the kitchen. For any reason. And we don't, heat up food in the microwave for them. It's off limits. It's every season, we have people bringing in, a can they want opened and then can you heat it up immediately? We don't do that.
So I'm going to repeat that really quick before you go on to your next comment. So guests are not allowed in the kitchen. We are not allowed to use the microwave. If somebody asks you to microwave their cup of noodle, we cannot do that. So please make sure that and we're all following that rule, right? The kitchen is off limits.
The other thing was like in regards to the knives.
Yes.
Make sure you put it in a place that you have visual observation of. This location in particular, our supplies are in the kitchen. And you put a knife in there, we don't have visual on that, because the volunteers are sitting in a different place, and someone seeing you put that knife in there could easily go in later and take it out.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat that too. So she is saying that when we hold that knife for somebody, that we make sure that we put it in a proper place where we have eyes on it, where we have a visual on it, because if we put it in a spot where we can't see it and the guests seen it, they can go in there and take that. So we want to make sure that we keep those weapons, if any are turned into us, in a visual area where we can see. Was that it? Okay, thanks, Sherry. Yes?
If we find somebody that would like to volunteer, we talk to our friends or family,
Mhm.
small groups.
Yes?
Do we have them go to the website? Do we have them contact you?
Either way works. I would have them go to the website and fill out that application. That's probably the quickest way. Fill out the application there, and then we contact them for the next steps. So yes, definitely. Yes. Yes.
I don't know if I mentioned previously, but in previous years, you could volunteer for a shift via email. It wasn't mentioned, was it? Is it still being done?
Yes. So if you contact the emails that have been going out recently come from that NOTS trainer 23. So if you want to sign up for a shift that way, you can definitely do that. Or the NOTS Carson Outlook. But I think the NOTS trainer is more frequently manned. So that would be the best way. Thank you. Yes.
So in the past, if we were to bring in a person we just wanted to see what it was like, we thought we would be interested in it. They had to fill out the application and get the background investigation fingerprinted before they could come into the center and say, do the opening shift for an hour. Is that still the same?
Yes, so the question was, if they have a friend that wants to come in, do they have to get their application and fingerprints done first? And that's absolutely correct. They do need to fill out the application, get their fingerprints done, and then they can shadow a shift. They can shadow the shift that you're on if they want to be with you and see how that works. Absolutely.
I would just point out that makes it more difficult to recruit people.
Yeah. We have that process in place for a reason. Because of the population that we deal with, we need to make sure that everybody's safe. So we have that background check that has to happen first. So just for safety purposes, I can understand that it can be a little frustrating, but yep.
On that subject.
Hold on. What's that?
The NOTS phone, that there isn't a phone just for, because I have forgotten my cell phone a few times.
Yes. Unfortunately, we will not have the center phone this year. Yeah. So, yes. So she asked if there was a center phone. Last year, we did have a phone that was at the center in instances where people had forgotten their cell phones. So we will not have that this year. Yeah, but thank you.
So don't forget it.
I know.
Along with the application and someone who wants to come in and see what we're doing, the reason we don't allow that is it's off.
Oh, you're good. I was just moving the camera.
Okay. The reason we don't do that, allow them to come in without an application, is like Jody says, we are dealing with a population, and we have had experience where there's been cars that are driving up and they're trying to sell or give the drugs to them outside. So part of our job as monitors and being there, if they're out having a smoke and you see cars driving up and they're going out and talking to those cars, we'd ask them, do not do that again, okay? Because there's all kinds of stuff could be going on. And we did have that problem at St. Teresa's about 3 or 4 years ago, okay? That car was eventually picked up, and yes, they were dealing drugs out of it. So it's something to be aware of. So we need to know who's coming into the shelter that's not a guest, okay? Yeah, some of them say,
I want to point out about that. So if I have a friend that I know, and they would want to come in and just observe that, they can't come. But if they were to come and just say they were homeless,
no, you could
they
bring,
would come.
if this is your friend and you know who they are, yes, bring them in with you. We just ask that you don't work a whole shift, okay? So they're coming in to see what's going on. This is an open door policy. We have code enforcement walk in quite often. We have VA comes in regularly, you know. So this is fine, you know. What we're talking about is the guy that walks in and says, hey, I'm interested in, and nobody knows who he is, okay, or she. So, and we've had that problem. There's been a couple of them. The other thing is we do not bring food of any kind. Please don't. I know your heart goes out sometimes, and we say, I've got all this stuff left over from this and that, and we're bringing in this food. If you do that, code enforcement will be coming in, and they will be checking our kitchen, and we will need to get certified. That's why we do not serve food. If they bring their own pizza in, or they bring in stuff in, the homeless bringing their own things in, and they want to share that with other people, that's fine. But if we bring it in and we do it, they're going to come in and they're going to start inspecting the kitchen, they're going to checking the heat of the food, and we have to get certified and we'll be shut down. So it's that simple. So we're asking, please don't, you know, in that aspect. The other thing is, go ahead.
One of the hot commodities are fresh socks.
Yeah, don't. Yeah.
If there's fresh socks, don't put them all out at the beginning of the night.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Let each shift put a few of the fresh socks out there, or some people will hoard all the fresh socks.
Yeah, I have a tendency when I'm there and you see me do it, I go by as they're going to bed and I toss them to them at the bed. Same thing with the gloves. That way they're not taking 5 and 6 pairs of this and that. So the other thing is absolutely no food or drink at the bedside. None. And as Jody said, no water, no nothing. Because that's where their problems have. They spill their coffee, they spill their hot chocolate. But I need to have water in the middle of the night. Fine, you can have water. It'll be at the community table. So you can get up and go get it. But that's where we run into our biggest problems with the churches. And we want to leave that church in better condition than when we got there, okay? So I think that's about it. Any other questions?
Yeah, you know how, some individuals get, kicked out permanently? Are we still doing the pictures, or, because like, I usually do the early shift, 3:45 to 7, and I don't know who people are necessarily. So when I see that such and such has been, is it 99, whatever the number is, whatever they are.
86th.
They, I don't, you know, if they come in at, 4 o'clock in the morning, I don't know who's been checked, you know what I mean? And who's 86.
If they've been kicked out that night, that should be in the,
I don't know who they are, if they come back in.
well, they come back in and you're going to be getting their name when they come in.
Right.
And they've,
If they give us the right name.
oh, I left earlier this evening, then we know there's a problem. No, you can't come back. You got a job? No, fine, see you tomorrow. Okay, that type of thing. But if they're coming in at 4 o'clock in the morning, yes, they can lie to you and give you another name. no, we're not taking pictures of them, okay? If there's band, that band list, we will sometimes just say, you're done for the night, come back tomorrow. But that band list is permanent. When we put you on that list, you are not coming back in that shelter. If you are, you will be arrested for trespass. And they are told that. So, okay? And they have to be pretty serious to hit that band list.
There will be a list of banned persons with volunteers.
There'll be a list, right?
There'll be a list of banned persons with us volunteers.
I don't understand.
There's a list of people who have been banned. We'll have their names.
Say that?
Yeah, he's asking if there's going to be a banned list. Yes, there's a banned list in the
Oh,
binder.
yeah, it's right on it's the very first page on that, because you want to know that. Now, we have some of them that have been banned 6 years ago, and it's still on that list, because they've either done something very drastic. They've been sprayed with whatever, they got in a fight or tried to do some harm to a individual, be it a guest or one of us. And when they're out for good, okay?
I have a question. This year, especially the economic challenges that we have now, are you seeing more homeless? I'm seeing a lot. Some I recognize, some of them I don't. Are you seeing an uptake?
We have estimated, and we're estimating right now, we know between 200 and 300 on the streets in Carson City. Okay, when we opened up, to be 8 years ago now, and when we opened up, we were talking between 75 and 100. Okay, and it's gone up. As the population of the town goes up, so will the population of the homeless. That's a given, any place. And we're trying to work on that. So we will see between 35, 40, maybe 50 this year per night, and that's a small percentage of what's out there. So, any other questions or comments?
Any, on the new building, a permanent?
We're trying. We're trying. We had 2 locations, got shot down with one. He refused to rent to us because we're sheltered. He doesn't want to bother another business what that might happen, which is understandable. There is that problem. And the other one is the code enforcement said absolutely not. They won't allow it, planning department in that area. And we're constantly working on that. We've got some things that Jody and I were a little excited about right now, but I'm not going to say anything about it until we know what's going on. Okay, so and we're doing that. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Concerning food by the beds, if we're walking around and they're sleeping and we see a cold cup of coffee, should we pick it up and?
Yep. You see me do it. I walk by and say, "You can't have that here. Take it back to the table."
What's our responsibility or what should we, how aggressive should we be about enforcing that no food at the bedside? If I walk by and see a bag of chips, pick it up, toss it.
With gloves.
Yeah, the question, Deacon, because we're recording, sorry. The question, really quick, Sarah, I'm going to answer it for everybody, because it's a good question, is how aggressive should we be if we see them have food and drink by the bedside, and we need to remind them, hey, you're not allowed to have this food, put it away, take it to the table. And I have had people, one of our regulars, get really upset with me and threaten me and all that over a cup of coffee by his bedside. At that point, then he can leave for the night. So if it gets to be a point where they're not following the rules, then we can ask them to leave for the night, definitely. We do need to make sure that we follow, that everybody's on the same page of following the rules.
Part of what she's asking though is if the guest is asleep.
Oh, if the guest is asleep, if the drink is there, I would toss the drink. And then if it's food, I don't want them to go without food, but I would maybe, what do you think, toss it?
I pick it up and
Toss it. So if you see the food out, just toss it. They know the rules, when they come in, they know the rules. So if they're going to do that, then if they're sleeping, I would just toss it.
And you got to remember that when we pick them up with the bus, you need to know this.
Deacon, you want to,
What the rules are.
do you want to come up here?
Okay, we pick them up with the bus. We tell them what the rules are at the bus. And we also tell them straight out, the people that are there with NOTS, their word is God's word. And that's exactly the way I tell it to them. I will back you up. We will back you up anytime and every time you make a decision, whether we think you're right or wrong. We will not embarrass you or contradict you with our guests at that time. We might go aside later and say, hey, let's talk about what you did and why, and go from there. But we will back you up and be your support. You're there to enforce the rules, make it safe for them and for yourselves. So we will always, always cover you. And we've got your back. And they know what's happening and what the rules are. There are very few of them. We're not hard, but we will be very hard and strict with those rules. Yes, sir.
But the essential thing is if you touch any of the belongings of one of the guests,
Gloves. If you're going to do anything with them, their pack or anything, and we have the right to search their pack, you glove up. Okay, it's that simple. Last year we had a couple guys coming in. I always touch their backpack when they come in. How you doing? I'm not just being friendly. I'm telling you, and I took out a nice hurricane out of one of the packs, and it was not open. And I said, so this is now mine, or are you leaving? And he chose to leave with it. He said, I paid $1.50 for that. I'm not giving it up. And he left, Okay? So that's his choice. But he knows that when he came in. He came back the next night, and he came in and he says, I don't have any. I drank it before I got here. So, all right. Any other questions?
Just one thing that is that if a person says, I'm having a hard time breathing, I need you to call 911 or whatever, is that, it's not our discretion, you just do it?
No, you do it.
You just do it.
We cannot legally refuse medicals for them. If they say they want an ambulance, and we look at it and say, hey, you did this last night, you're looking for a warm bed, Dennis has been a real, very common with him. And he's always having a heart attack. But you cannot make that decision. You're not the doctor. So you let the paramedics make that, okay? Anything else? Well, we thank you for being here. This would not be happening without you and your support. So we want to thank you. You guys are nothing but a blessing from God, and we really, really do appreciate it. Thank you. God bless.